to get an understanding of, how that works and how other people interpret, universal happenings in their particular lives. You know, is it a feeling? Is it a connection? You know, do you read the signs? How do we come to that interpretation when we say, what is faith? What is fate? Is it predestined? What is karma in its rawest sense? Those kind of questions I'd like to discuss tonight. How do we get in tune on that particular aspect? So just to see what's on people's mind and how they do what they do too. Where it lies at.
Star,
Yes.
may I
Start.
start?
Yes, you can.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I love this subject. I feel that um, I feel that everything is aligned. I always use the universe um, because it's bigger than us, which is something that I always say. And I know that things happen in my life out of my control, out of my control. People who I come in contact with need to come in contact with me for whatever it is that we need to share and deliver to each other. It's not about me doing anything, it's about the connection, the energy. Um, Even in my driving profession, when people get in my car, they could be angry, talking on the phone, arguing. When they get in, they'll say, "What do you have in here?" And I say, "You and I." And they'll say, "No, it's calm. What do you have in here?" But it's the energy, it's the balance, the word you use a lot. It's the balance, and whatever was going on in their lives outside of my car, literally like hand on the door, it wasn't as balance. And I really didn't do anything. It's just present. It's present. But people, we don't pay close enough attention because we're not silent enough. Sometimes we need to be really, really still so we can see how things are flowing, what's happening, even what's going through our minds when we take that silent time. One of my clients, he did he went on a silent retreat, I think for a week or 2 weeks, total silence. And he said, Yvonne, you have no idea what that was like. Because so much of your mind is processing in ways that you don't normally pay attention to because we just keep moving and doing and moving and doing. So I'm looking forward. I'm glad I'm here and thank you for the topic. You're muted, Star.
Yeah, yeah. And my question is, with all that information and people being able to feel, how do you interpret it? Is it a vibration one feels? Is it an awakening? Even though all things are vibrations, but when it comes, that this is from this particular place, from the source itself, the source of energy itself, as opposed to just regular human interactions of bringing good news into somebody's life. Even though the universe is attached to that, sometimes, when you get it verbally, it's plainer for people to understand. Then I'm talking about when everything is on mute afterwards, or when you're in a moment of silence to yourself and you're contemplating something, or you're wishing on something that's about to happen, and it either happens or it don't. How does one, like, really figure that out and say, this is the universe and is doing this without, being all over the place to the point that it doesn't sound like it makes a lot of sense. You just a lot of times parroting, what other people say, yo, the universe is so good to me, blah, 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 because you see the end results of it. You don't see when it was actually, or you don't feel when it was actually working, but you see the end results of how do we tell people to recognize those particular signs when they come. That's what I'm speaking to. How do we share with somebody that when you have this particular feeling, expect this to happen? Like when you're going to have a stomach ache or a headache or whatever it is, you get that particular sign, or something that triggers an allergy, cut grass, perfumes, or oils, a certain thing. That there's something that's going to follow that because it comes all the time. But we know that we are connected to the source at all times. Even in transition, you return to the source. That's what I believe. So, how do we teach the elderly, the youth, and all in between? How do we
Um,
teach them?
if I may,
Yeah, yes, you may.
I would say one of the first steps is talking about your experience because many people are experiencing it, but they don't talk about it because we're not taught really how to talk about it. So if we start talking about it when these things happen to each other, especially to the young people, the brilliance in our young people is amazing. Their knowledge is amazing. That's the first way of really showing them that it's, there's something stronger going on with us when they can look at themselves as a young person, when they can look at themselves and see their knowledge in certain areas that no one has taught them, that's the first step to helping them to see that greatness is beyond that there's another influence, not Satan, because there's a lot of blanketness to either Satan or God. It's neither one or the other. It either isn't. And it's it's not bad. I was going to say it's bigger than us again, but when you can show a child and even an elder, look at it, the elders are perfect because the elders used to say, we're elders now too, but they used to say that child's been here before. Help them to break down what they meant by that. What did you mean by that? What was that child doing that you would make that statement? And it brings it to them that that child had an energy, had knowledge, had a desire, had a talent that was not taught to them by anyone currently present. So the elders could see it in what they used to say about young people. And then the young people, when they do something that's just really different, like super, uh, let's go, supernatural, right? Help them to see that. But it's that in between group that you kind of left out. And that in between group is tricky. I say my passion is children and seniors. That other group, oh well, but it's that other group that needs to get that education as well because they are the parents of the children. And if they don't recognize brilliance and the creativity and the gifts that are within that child and moving all around them, then that's how it gets shrouded. So we have to communicate it. We have to say what's happening. Wow, did you see that? Wow, how did that happen? Like speak it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So there is a connection that has to be reignited, a spiritual connection, a vibration, and understanding vibrations. And when we meet people and understanding, what makes their vibration their vibration. Trials and tribulation that one goes through is the vibration, in some ways not receptive, not damaged, because what is created by the source, the main source in my world, cannot be damaged. So, but it can be clouded. I think Yvonne there used a great word. It could be, surrounded in turmoil. It could be surrounded in selfishness. When you look at certain situations, you just think about you all the time, and what you're caught up in, and it doesn't seem appropriate for you to think outside of your personal survival. But what is the key to your survival? Where do you balance your survival off with on this level? What keeps that human aspect of you balanced off, mentally or spiritually? Because you only have two choices, as you know, your physical being, your mental being, and I believe you to be a spiritual being. So how do you measure that off once we get into a position of understanding that there is something that is greater than us? How do we get in tune with recognizing that for each other? And how do we learn to break down those clouds, that spiritual storm that's clouding your spiritual vision, your spiritual vibration, and finding a way so that it can transmute and lock into others around you? Because this is where the unity actually comes from. That unity based in spiritual beliefs, in spiritual aspects, and spiritual attributes. Those connections are never broken once they connect, because this is the source for success. That's why, they always say birds of a feather flock together. You know what I'm saying? Because they have this need to be in numbers. Whatever that balance, and, when you see a bunch of birds flying south, or when you see, it looks like hundreds of them when they move in the same direction, no matter which way the leader of the flock goes. They just move in harmony, like it's a ballet. It's a flying ballet, a bird ballet. And so you figure it out. But now, when we have those kind of moments where it becomes clear, or it's becoming clearer, how do we share, and what venues can we use for sharing? I know we have this venue, and I'm not a frequent flyer here. I be so into certain things, and that brought the question up to me today. Something happens and it's where it's supposed to be, and then a few days later, it's not what it's supposed to be. And one time, someone told me, or I read it somewhere. Either way, the information was given to me, and it taught me that when you look at certain situations, not to look at it in a negative way. I was going at a particular spot in a program that I came home to, and it seemed like everything was in my way of getting to this spot, and I used to blame it on other people. And then I read somewhere where it said, more or less, that the devil is not blocking you from having it. It's just that God is trying to tell you to go another way, or this way has been blocked for other reasons. And I share that information freely. And then when it comes to myself, sometimes it bothers me to the point where I've given up hope in my universal connection, because I'm saying that it's not working. You give it to me in one hand and you don't take it away, but you delay it in another. And then I look at sometimes my actions that's associated with being a go-getter. Sometimes they're not up to par. But that's what was on my mind today, and taking my universal understandings. And I've studied this long enough to know that delay is not the source going back on his word, or the source not answering your prayer. Delay is sometimes utilized, for one, to show your patience. We learned that in the biblical story of Job. You know what it is to go through turmoil patiently and keeping faith in your higher power. Like when everything is going good, everything is, to the glory of God, or, some way or some form of people praising, their particular God, Allah, you Akbar, or, and things of that nature, and thank you, Jesus. But when things seem a little clouded, like Yvonne said earlier, when that spiritual eye is somewhat clouded by circumstances that we find ourselves surrounded in, we lose focus. We lose focus, and we get to a point where you lose the ability to reason, and you lose the ability to believe in the words that you just passed on to another in having faith. God is good. He's doing this for this, and that. But when this affects you personally, there's a different outcome. There's a different look that you're not looking through those rose-colored glasses no more. Your whole prism has changed. The dynamics and the paradigm of the whole situation is now gone, and it boils down into a disagreement. And the human side of you doesn't know how to deal with it anymore because you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. But the spiritual strength that that you tell people to utilize, to be aware of, it's not there no more. You don't seem to believe in it no more. And it'd be like, wow, everything you serve me now, I have to scrutinize your words now, because when it's going good, you have good words. That's why they tell you never judge a man or a woman when he or she is comfortable. You judge them when they're uncomfortable. The integrity, the ability to do good things when nobody's watching, to have good thoughts when bad thoughts come in, and then always give praise to the fact that you could do this for another day. Have good thoughts, have bad thoughts, have unbalanced thoughts, have balanced thoughts. You've been blessed with another day. And there's an understanding that's associated with that. And you want to learn how to share that so that it becomes sort of, a way of life, and understanding the vibrations and the ups and downs. How do we deal with adversity, with the understanding of adversity coming from the major source of life itself? Because nobody goes into life that I know personally without some form of struggle of another. You have to, I don't care what it is. Your kids getting them to do homework, to taking out the garbage, or whatever it is, that there's going to be somewhere along the line that you're going to run into a speed bump at whatever level it is, so that you know that you're being tested somehow, some shape, some form. And how do we deal with it from a place of wisdom? Because it's like when you're waiting on something, and the people that have been waiting with it, waiting with it, are waiting with you. They're getting tired of the delay. It brings about friction in your relationship, your friendship, your workplace, the basketball court, and you sit up and you say, wow, I want this to work out because I don't want to seem like this is wrong, that I've wasted my time. And then in the same vein, you say you have faith in God, and you've discussed this with them. This is, I know what it's going to be. How do we keep in that level of faith in the times of adversity? Is you're fighting off demons, and we know that there's no demon that is stronger than the natural source, the source of all things, because the source of all things created the demon when he created the laws of opposite. Good and evil, righteous and unrighteous, So we got an understanding of that. But now, how do we get through it? How do we understand that the adversities, as many as they may come? Because sometimes what they do, they come in avalanches. It's that proverbial snowball rolling down the hill on that Christmas day. It just keeps growing. That avalanche. When it rains, it pours, and things that fit the description of the vibration that you're going through, and learning how to weather that. Learning how to take the pieces as they come, especially when we get into relationships where the things that we depend on, and it has to be that way anyway, that is there are outside forces other than you that, pull strings at certain particular points in, of the operation, and whatever it is you're trying to succeed. You're going to the studio, the engineer's mother gets sick. Should he forget about his mother and make sure that he comes in to make sure that whatever it is that y'all are doing together gets done? Or should he go to see his mother?
Can
happen. Go ahead, bro.
Can I say something about that? With me, you mentioned what do you do? I believe if you're a person of faith, if you believe in God and Jesus, then what you do is when these things occur, that's when you look more towards God, not less. We're all sinners, so we're all going to make mistakes, and we all going to do things we're not supposed to do. But instead of going away from God or whatever, when something happens, that's when you should look towards God. Because a lot of things that you think that, are impossible to handle or you can't handle, God can handle anything.
But then that means that you have an expiration on your faith. Because if you believe what you just told me, and you've heard some adversity before, and in that time of adversity you turned to God and you overcame that, how do you go back to having adversity again and again and again when you know that the formula for adversity is your faith in God? Why do you continue to keep having these adverse effects in life? When you keep meeting a foe or some kind of event that becomes an adversary to you. And whether it be mentally, physically, or spiritually. But if you know, and you've done this already, you've turned to God in your time of need, and God took care of that, how do you keep winding up in need of God, meaning that you had to turn away from Him?
Well, we're in need of God every day. And we might turn away from Him, but like I said, we're all sinners. And I look at it like you look at a drug addict. Now, I look at a heroin addict. Now, he's using heroin every day. Now, he knows, after a while, he knows that it's bad for him. And he knows that it's harming himself. But that feeling of needing the drug is so strong that he will go and keep using it. But he can still look to God. He might use the drug 100 times and look to God every day after he uses it, try to ask God to help him stop using it. But it may take him 100 times, and all of a sudden one day he may stop using it. God don't necessarily do it when you want him to do it. He do it when he wants. He does it when he wants to do it. So what I'm saying is that when you look to God and you ask Him to help you solve these problems. Now, you might keep doing the same thing over and over again because you're a sinner, like me too. But sooner or later, if God's going to change it, He'll change it overnight. I can give you an example about me smoking cigarettes. I didn't that much, but I did smoke a little bit for a couple of years, and I wanted to stop. So I prayed to God, asked Him to remove the taste from my mouth. He didn't remove that taste from my mouth the same day, same minute. It took me about a year, but I finally stopped smoking. And I haven't smoked since. So when you run into controversy and problems, that's when you look to God more. That's what I think.
All right. I don't think that's a bad belief system. I don't think that's a bad belief system. I think you made some valid points. And this is the aspect that we have to, I think that we have to come to an understanding about delays. And you made an excellent point when you made the point of, when you use the heroin addict as an example. He goes to God every day, but it's delayed. You went to him every day about your cigarette. It was delayed for a whole year until one day he took the taste out of your mouth. So, sometimes delay is for a reason. And in that reasoning is, I think, where most people lose faith at, and they just reside to fate that this is what I'm going to do. They lose their faith and they upgrade their fate to a fate of disaster. This is just what it is. I'm going to be this, and this. I battle with that cigarette thing every day, and I understand what you're saying. And I do believe that one day I'm going to quit it. You know what I'm saying? But in the meantime, that's what I just said, how do we get to the point where we get an understanding of what's going on, like you just said, as everybody being sinners, and, for lack of a better word right now, I understand what it is that you're saying, and again, I thought you raised some valid points in the sense of dealing with, delayed blessings or why things are delayed. I don't know why he delays with the cigarettes, because every day with the cigarettes is a day closer to cancer or whatever. But, again, even with the years that I smoke, I don't have any of those problems. And I was born with a respiratory problem. That's what makes it crazy about my smoking. But he's woken me up every day since that point. Since the day of my birth, he's woken me up every day. So, but I enjoyed that, yeah. So, yeah, sure you can.
So it's interesting that Dr. James brought up the smoking, and so kind of back to how do we help people to understand like what's happening. I was driving Accessoride, and I pulled up to pick up this lady. She had just lit her cigarette. She dropped it down. She got in the car. She sat back. She said, "God, I wish I could stop." So I said, "For real?" So she said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, here's an idea. I believe that Nabisco Ginger Snaps satisfies the taste of nicotine." I said, "Get a box of Ginger Snaps, break the cookie in 4 pieces. Every time you want a cigarette, put a piece in your mouth and just let it dissolve on your tongue." She screamed. She said, "Why did you say that?" So I said, "Because I believe it will work." She says, "Oh my gosh." She says, "What?" She was scaring me, really. She says, "Why did you say that?" She had loved Ginger Snaps, had not had any in over 20 years. She bought 2 boxes the night before she got in my car. She says she thought she would eat them while she was watching TV, but never got around to it. She says, "Why did you say that, miss?" I said, "Well, do you pray to God and ask God to help you quit smoking?" She says, "I do." I said, "Then that's why I said it." It could be just that simple, not quitting, but getting the answers and being in touch and being aware. And I do believe what I said to her, to the point where it's actually in my book. I do believe it. And I don't know if it worked for her, because I don't usually see people after I interact with them, which is part of that as well. But I took it as affirmation. Just like this gentleman was on the call about 2 months ago. He was on one of our podcasts, and he has Asperger's, or the symptoms of Asperger's. And he asked me, what did I know about it? And I said, tell me your symptoms. That he has a hard time disconnecting from conversation. Like when people want to stop talking, he doesn't know how. So I suggested to him to get a stopwatch. And every time he starts a conversation, set the stopwatch for like a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. I said, can you do that? He said, yes. I said, okay. When I got in my car the next day, there was a watch on my floor that had a stopwatch. I just look up and say thank you. So I recognize what I do because of the confirmations that I receive around it. I don't know how it works. I don't know why it works, but I recognize the things that I do, and I just say thank you. It's different for everybody, so that's why I say we have to talk about. Well, one of the things, not just that, but we have to talk about the things that we're doing in our lives, the effects that we're having on ourselves, on other people, the effects that other people are having on us, because we interact with people all the time, and they give us an aha moment, like, wow, you know what, I never thought about that, or thank you for sharing that information with me. Beyond what you originally came for, we're being given the information. Thank
Okay, all right. You see, and I think a lot of times when we deal with people in the way that we were trained coming up as kids, a lot of things that we share, the information, it's we inherited it, all the way down to like our sporting teams. What's a funny program? We remember the programs we grew up watching with our parents, or the team that was rooted for by the elders of the house. You rooted for them too. Because you had this, even at a young age, this spirit of family togetherness. So when your pops or your moms or whoever it was, they cheered, you cheered, and you may have even grown out of it as you gotten older. But those kind of things you inherit. A lot of people inherit religion, their cultural beliefs. So now we have to get to a point where we need the understanding of spiritual happenings in the forefront of people's minds, so that they can interpret certain things, not just say it like they believe it, but understand it when they see it. Not just believe it when they say it, but understand it when they see it. In this way, you lose a lot of the confusion. Because sometimes you could be in a place where you're trying to have a particular vibration, or you're enjoying a vibration, and someone will come and destroy that. It's almost like, you hear people say, the devil's always at work, because they come in with a negative vibe, and you're saying, like, listen, this is where I'm at. This is where I need to be. I'm trying to be connected to the universe so that I can understand and reap the benefits of what the universe is trying to give me. So, and they'll just destroy that for you. And I've been guilty of that, but I'm more of a pusher when I hear people that are in that position. I always refer them to the higher power, especially when it's in a position that there's nothing that I can actually do about it. Like I was saying earlier, and when you're dealing with, outside people, and your team consists of certain people, as certain things happen to them where they can't perform the duties that you need them to perform when you need it performed, or when you think you need it to be performed, things can go haywire. You get into a position of why me? Why me? You get the whole why me syndrome, and it's not even appropriate for the particular time. Whatever it is that you were supposed to do that day, this might be a life-saving delay. It might give you a little more time to understand what it is that you're getting into, a little more time to perfect what you're getting into. So when you do get there, you have one more day of experience of thinking how it should be. and how to keep it in the way that your thought pattern has it to be. So those are just some of the things that we have to understand. And the thing about it is teaching it. So when we sit down and understand those particular things that we can share to a point where it's not beyond metaphysics for somebody to understand what it is that you're saying. When it's not beyond that, when you can explain it to a person in a manner that is just so understandable that now they recognize all the signs and symbols that they've seen in the past. So that's just some of the things that we get to understand about this particular way of life. Understanding how it really, really works. And sometimes, being able to escape the human aspects of emotional breakdowns when things don't go a particular way or the way that you plan them to go. That's what's really happening. People always say that, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plan. And it's so understandable, but even in making that phrase applicable, is just a lot of faith that's involved in that, because you get to the point where you push your plan to the side and say, well, show me your plan. And if it doesn't run according to your schedule, you think that you're not a part of the source's plan, the main source, that higher source, that higher being. You say, well, man, it must not be written for me, because we fail to see the signs. And we fail to have griots that explain this to us, like they explain fairy tales of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and things of that nature. We don't have those who take the time to do that no more. Where the kids are acceptable, where the elders are taught, where their wisdom is given to us about the strength of delay. The strength of being a predator for what it is that you want instead of being the prey of life. Because when you get to that point and you do the pity parties and all that, you become prey. You fall to an emotional side that brings about, chaos for everybody. It actually brings about chaos for everybody else that surrounds you. Because now, it gets to the point where they don't even want to talk no more. You don't want to be a part of their conversations because, when no matter where it starts, it always ends up with a disagreement, when there should be none. And that's on both sides. It's not just, one side, disagreeing with another. It's, because we are taught that way, we may even do it subconsciously, So we have to beware of when we talk to people, and this is important, about their spiritual welfare. We have to be on point about their spiritual welfare in the manner of how we talk to people. I think that's
Can I
very
say
important.
something about that?
Sure you can.
I look at, my question is my dilemma. You look at this thing going on in the Middle East with Israel, which is a religious country. People are supposed to be religious. And the Palestinians, which are religious country, supposed to be religious. Now, whose side does God take? They both believe in God. You know what I mean? In a situation like that. And can you lose but actually win? And that's like the Palestinians. Now, a lot of their people are dying, but they are getting they're trying to get some concessions that they didn't have before. So are they losing and winning at the same time? Is God helping them or harming them? That's my question.
All right, but what are the concessions that they're receiving? there's
Well, they released some of the prisoners from the jail, and now they
that wasn't a concession. That was a trade. That was even Stephen.
They released more Palestinians than the Palestinians.
But that's the agreement that they settled on. That's barter. That's not a concession or something you measured by God. That was just a trade-off. And every aspect of it is
food, and they getting everything, medicine, the water, and all that. So
yeah, but they had their own food and water prior to the war. They had that prior to the war. But when you ask,
my thing is, whose side God's on? Is he on the Jews or the Muslims?
Yeah, I couldn't answer that at all. Because I don't think, in the sense of it all that that God is the author of confusion. I think that in times of conflict like that, this is where people actually find God. And you have your personal relationship with God. I don't think that it's a whole country going a whole way just because they're in a religious country that they have the same religious mindset. Having a religious mindset is different than being a part of a religion. I
believe the Palestinians might be losing, people might be dying, but when this is all over, I think they will gain respect.
I mean, that's an opinion. I don't know what they're doing.
I'm thinking that. I don't know if it's going to happen, but maybe you have to lose a lot of people to get that respect.
Maybe. I don't know. I've never been in that particular situation, and I wouldn't know what to do under that pretense of that kind of situation. Like I said, because I've just never been in a war. I don't know how one thinks, how one has their relationship to God. Do they ask for forgiveness for all that they've done? Do they weigh the war and what's happening to their family on their shoulders for some sin that they may have committed? And I don't know how people interpret what goes on in those times. I just know I'm not a fan of any kind of war. When you see what wars are really doing, so I'm not. I just in all sincerity wish it would stop. But it is what it is, and I don't have an answer on why it starts. And I have an opinion, but it doesn't count when it's like who's going to win this, whose God is in favor. That's why I just said that earlier. They say you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. So I don't know what plans he has for this particular war that's going on. Is it Allah going to win this, or are the Hebrews going to win it? When you have all that firepower that they have, you could basically tell who's going to win the physical war, and that may be a good question. Who wins the spiritual war? Who is God actually going to protect, or give credit to being a winner in this situation? When you're talking about wars of this, this is you can always count them as holy wars, because basically most wars are fought over politics and religion. So how do you interpret it? What is the spirit?
It's like when you're a kid, you're in the school, and you're in the schoolyard, and there's a bully. Now he fights with everybody, and he usually beats everybody up. Now he might try to do something to you where you might have to fight him. Now he might beat you up, but if you stand up to him, regardless if you lose the fight, you may gain some respect from him. Next time he'll know that if he bothers you, you're going to fight him back. And that might be the situation with the Palestinians where they know they're going to lose lives and everything in Israel. But they finally have gotten the nerve to fight them back. Is it good? No, because a lot of people are going to die. But like I said, you may know you're going to lose, but you may, just by putting up a fight, you may gain respect. You know?
Yeah, but your question was, what I thought the question was anyway, is that how do you base the winner according to their relationship with God? Which God wins, the God of the Jews or the God?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, I mean, the bully theory is one theory, but when you're talking about a spiritual understanding of this, I thought it was a different question that you posed.
I did. I'm just saying, both of them are religious, but is one religion or one form of faith superior to the other? Will God make one win, one lose?
Well, it's going to be based on wins and losses at every level anyway, but, is there a spiritual gain? And that's something that's what I'm saying. I really can't answer, because not being in the position of the Israelis or the Palestinians, that particular vibration is going to miss me. My saying who won or who lost is just going to be based on my opinion, and I might be, biased in that because of, the relationship that we've had with, matter of fact, both of those, the Palestinians and the Jews, so.
Well, you can look at it this way. Even though the Palestinians might lose lives, if Jews blow up all their buildings, eventually, someday, somebody's going to have to rebuild them buildings. And guess what? They all going to get new housing. They're going to get new apartments, brand spanking new houses. Right? Because, I'm just saying, if you look at it that way.
Housing that bad. I don't think they wanted their
I'm not saying level. They did it. I'm not saying they did it for that reason. But I said, that's how God works. So maybe they get new houses, new apartments, and there had to be a sacrifice. Because they're going to rebuild. They're going to rebuild it. Either United States or another country, probably the United States, will give them money to rebuild their house. Because we always do.
I doubt if the United States does that, but in the sense, that's just, to me, that's a far-fetched concept, because you're talking about, decades of rebuilding a city. The city is basically leveled right now.
I know. As I said, they're going to have to rebuild everything.
There'll be no housing for them people for years and years and years and decades to come, bro. So I don't think anybody's looking at the fact that they'll be getting newer buildings as a consolation to this war. There'll be more housing. Of course, there'll be more housing. There's going to be less people. They done killed 12,000 of them already.
Yeah, that's true. They're going to be less people, and they're going to have to build brand new buildings. But that's not only in Palestine. They're going to do that in Ukraine, too. We always do that. And we notice, after we have a war, we involved with a war, after the war is over, here we come helping the people to rebuild. We did it with the Germans. We did it with the Japanese. We always do it. But what we like to do is we like to take over the place. If we rebuild the place, we like to put our people in to run the government. See, and this guy Netanyahu, he said he don't want to let the Palestinians govern themselves because they can't be trusted. So he wants to put Israeli troops in control of Palestine, period. Boy, he said temporarily. That might be for a long time. And they might continue to fight over that.
More than likely they will. More than likely they will. But it's that. But that's when you look at it, and you look at it from a distance, such as we look at it through the lenses of the news and special broadcasting and this and that and this and that. It's an ugly scene, man. You traumatize children for the rest of their lives. You're talking about 3-4-year-old babies. And then, you turn around and you look at the trauma that they suffer right here in this country. You talk about building up other countries after particular wars because they're ally, or you might have a particular liking to take over their country, because that's what it all boils down to. It's a fight for land. Under the guise of sometimes political reasons or religious reasons, or there's a natural, religious hatred. There are many reasons that wars are really fought, but the situation being is that, it's traumatizing to the soul. It's very traumatizing to the soul. So, and people have to understand that, but, there's just certain things that are going to be certain ways because you have certain types of leaders. And this is what leadership calls for. It's been that way since they came, when they came with the Spanish Inquisition in the 15th century, when they started spreading Christianity by force, and then, you had the opposite side of it. So you figure out those kind of things, and the war situations, they're almost explainable, but they're not very reasonable, to certain kind of people, when you look at the reasoning for war and the sacrifices that are made in war, when women and children and innocent men die, and and a small group of this versus a large group of them, and big bank take little bank. That's what it's based on. Same thing that the way that they fight wars in the hood. It's just that there's a greater reward when it's done on a higher level. As far as the people who are fighting the war, they deem it a greater war. Just like a guy trying to take over a block and he has no ownership on, but he wants to put his product down there, his medicine, he wants to put his drugs over there. So he looks at that situation and he goes to war. In America, it's the same way. They fight over, land that is not theirs. And if you ever read, the story of an economical hitman, it goes into depth of that. So, so those are just certain situations, and I don't think that, there is, interference of God during the war. And if there is anything, I think he passes judgment after, what is going on is going on. Or maybe even he may pass judgment while it's going on. That's why certain people die and certain people live. So, it's just some things are just unexplainable, and and it's beyond my comprehension to even think about it, because it's not compelling enough for me to really get deep into it when I'm dealing with certain things on other levels. But it's definitely something to investigate when you look at the greater scheme of things. What is the reasoning for? It's always good to understand that, what is the reasoning that this is catching my eye, and what is the reason that it's even taking place.
Well, anyway, that's all I had to say.
All right. Okay, bro. There's just a lot, and I think that as well as everybody else, So when we sit down and we come to these particular understandings, that's where it's at. How do we get to the points where we get to understanding certain things, delayed responses, immediate responses, and things of that nature. And I just believe everything comes in its own time, and I think that we should, as a whole, expand our understanding to really understand, and then expand our input in questioning the people that when we see them going through this, how they feel about it, so that we can maybe even recognize it in ourselves when it happens to us. And that's the beauty of the communication, what Yvonne was saying earlier. How do we, know what to do, and the first means of that is a form of communication, but with the communication, you have to open your mind like a parachute. That's why they say the human mind is like a parachute, because if it's not fully open, it doesn't work properly. So you have to, expand your understanding. And then, so when it happens to you, this is the expansion, the mental expansion that you want from other people. So you have to learn to apply that same thing when other people may need you to be supportive of something that they're going through by way of delay, by way of outside forces that you have no control over, such as the example that we gave you. You have to be in the studio to do this, but the engineer's mother has taken ill, and the engineer ran to take care of his family, and now you're stuck without a backup engineer. But somehow the show must go on, and and you'll say it on the way there, God willing, I'll get through this. So you call upon them, almost out of second nature. But when you call upon him, how deep is your relationship to understand that he's going to help you, but do you recognize the help that he's going to send you? Or you're in a state of panic because, again, your mind is not fully open to the things that you say that you believe in when you give advice to other people. But when it comes around to you, you're just into the point, and you say, I don't really want to hear this. You know what I'm saying? This is going on, and blah, blah, blah. This is real life. This is not a hypothetical situation. As all those things run through your mind, you be like, oh, man, not this again. You know what I'm saying? Or this is not going in my favor. Or this is not what I want to hear at this particular time. But the fact is that it is what it is. And I don't think there's anything that, a lot of people can do to change it. And that's where sometimes, especially when we look at, the mindset of basically like young black men, especially at this time of the year when we get increasing numbers of us getting incarcerated because they want to change a situation that they knew was coming anyway. It's gift giving time. The children need this, the parents need this. You want to do a little bit better. You want to see this. You want to be a little happy no matter how messed up your situation may be. You want to kind of get in season, especially when you see other people doing it, whether it's in your neighborhood or outside of your neighborhood. This is a festive time of the year, and you're not in the situation to really be festive. You know what I mean? So, how do we deal with that? Where's that mindset at? And this is what's, important about understanding mindsets, and when you look at it and you say, well, this is what I have to do in order to do this, this, and this. When you have another choice. You always have a choice, which kind of differs from, the goal of our basic conversation. From the choices that you have, you learn to interpret the choice in your interpreting right or wrong when you're making this choice of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. You could do it by hook or crook, or you could do it the right way. So you're in a battle with interpretation again. The flip side of it, where we were at this beginning of this conversation, was spiritual interpretation. And it's not no hocus pocus thing. The key thing, again, I point you back to what Yvonne said at the top of the show. Communication. This is not no hocus pocus form of communication. This is not about speaking in tongue. This is about speaking the general language that you have to make others understand what it is that you are feeling in a way that's understandable without some form of mysticism that makes the other person, because of their upbringing, overlook what you're saying as some form of hocus pocus. You explain it in a manner that it's meant to be explained in, and there should never be a problem with that. None whatsoever. And that is what's happening. And how I see it. So I just wanted to put that out there to get other people's, to hear what other people had to say about that particular topic. How do we stay in vibration? When you read the book, The Secret, or the Prosperity Bible, it's all about staying focused. Even in the biblical sense, it carries the same principles or the same format that The Secret has. You know, knock on the door and it shall open. As believe and receive. That principle of being in tune with the universe. Ask for it, believe you can get it, and you'll receive it. Knock on the door, and the door shall open. You're in a funk, and you're in a situation. The secret teaches that the frequencies is almost like changing the channel on the TV. When you get to a program that you don't like, and what do? You change the channel. It's the same way with mental frequencies, but the thing about it is that sometimes because of our training, it's hard to stay on that path. It's just as hard as it is with, new jacks with a new diet, or a new workout plan, or old workout plan, and they stop. And it's hard to get back into the workout because there are other elements that don't allow you the time that you had to work out before, or to jog, or to increase your studies and your hobbies as cooking and crocheting, because different things and different elements, and we have to learn to manage our time differently, and this, that, and the third. But it creates a situation where you have to create a new algorithm. That's what it does. So when you sit down and you understand the situation, and you come to it, we get an understanding of it.
Can I say something about it?
Sure you can.
You know what? Now, we were just talking a little bit about war. He said that Israel killed 12,000 Palestinians. Now, if you look at a year in this country, you probably have more than 12,000 minority people. You don't even have to say black. You can say minority. You can say black or Hispanic. Well, you have more than 12,000 being killed every year in this country on a regular basis.
Yeah, but see, the thing about
so
we
in the war too now.
But the thing about it is that you have covert wars and you have overt war. Since the Watts riot, California's been in a civil war. The Bloods and the Crips today is an extension of what happened to the older gangs that came out of the Watts riots. So anytime that you have people killing their own people, and I think the number is 10,000, they consider that a civil war. But they don't title it that because the way that the game is set up, they want young black men to kill off young black men or old black men, or just black men killing black men, period. So, but they're not going to tell you.
Black men now, it's women, black women, and children. Rockwell killed his whole family.
Yeah, but the thing about it, but that's, you're talking about mental health now. The thing about it is with that is when we look at it is how they give it to us to perceive it. They don't announce that California's in a civil war. They won't use those terms. They'll just use black on black crime because they don't want it seen as that, and then they don't want to be seen as weak as it is to sending in the resources to stop all the killing, because the killing can stop easily, with the influx of guns.
California.
But we're not
New York, Chicago.
But we're not talking about which cities it's in. We know it's in every city. We're just using California as an example. We're not excluding any cities. We know there's gang problems in Chicago, Detroit, Minnesota, Little Rock. There's gang problems in America, period. We're just using
California. But not only gangs, it's just murders. People murdering people, they didn't even have to be in the gang. You know what I mean? They just killing each other. And we in the war right here. And one of the problems is, like you just said about it's Christmas time and people want things and they don't have the money and all that type of stuff. And that's true. And what they need to do is They need to make these jobs. In other words, we have to figure out a way to make it where the jobs can't use things against you from hiring you, like, oh, you had a criminal record and, 20 years ago, or you did something and all kinds of nonsense. And then those kids like that, they wind up, they can't even get a job in McDonald's. You know what I mean? And that shouldn't be the case.
But that's the way the board. That's the way the board is set up. That's just the way the board is set up, and that's when you have. Well, that's what happens when you allow people to outthink you. When you have people who are in think tanks that think 5-10 years down the line and how to keep a person at a certain level,
Keep a group of people at a certain level, so these young kids can't apply to get a job as a police officer or as a teacher or whatever, because they got a criminal record.
Yeah, all right. That's understandable. But that's the way they set the game up.
A lot of them will go out there and do something illegal, especially like you said, it's Christmas time. They want these sneakers and all kinds of stuff. Everybody wants this and that because all their friends got the Jordan sneakers.
All right.
They don't have the money to get them. They're not going to walk around with no reject sneakers.
Well,
they'd rather climb or something to get those sneakers.
That's the way the media set it up, so that kids will have this craving for a particular pair of sneakers. That's the way the board is set up. Because they know that if you create material and materialistic people, this is what they'll do to get the material that they want. Whether it's jewelry, clothing, sneakers, cars. Who don't care?
The kids, they just say, all my friends got Jordans, I'm getting me a pair.
I just said that. The media set it up that way. It's not that he doesn't care. He cares too much because he's getting the wrong information. The wrong information is being input to his brain. The wrong imagery is going into his brain. And this is why if you don't teach him how to deal with advertisements and things of that nature, or teach him the principles that's associated with the fact that you have, merchants and you have consumers. And we've been taught to be consumers. So that's what consumers do. But the peer pressure
is very strong. Peer pressure is very strong. And you can't be around them all the time. Now, you might be around them at home, but when they go to school, be around his friends. And if they all got Jordans and he walking around with reject sneakers, they're going to laugh at him.
Did you understand what I just said? You just said the same thing. You just repeating the same thing I just said.
Yeah. So that's why they need to make it. They need to make it where it's easier for these kids. A lot of people made mistakes in younger life, and now even their parents, they can't get a decent job and all that stuff. So they should make it easier for them to get decent jobs and stop using things, old things against people, because that forces people to go out there and commit more crime. They can't get no money no other way.
What forces them to do that?
If they can't get no money no other way.
No, but
or they feel like they can't get no money.
Well, I'm saying, what is the way that they can't get no money? What is stopping them from getting money?
I mean, if they can't get a job, making money where they can afford to get the things that most people have in this world or in this country.
But why can't they get jobs?
They may have a criminal record or something of the sort.
Yeah, but
they might be able to get a job, but it won't pay them.
Yeah, but they can't use your criminal record no more in the state of New York. They got laws against that.
Well, New York, but not in New Jersey. New Jersey, they can still use it.
And then that's what you got to do.
In New York, they can still use it for some jobs. Like if you want to be a cop or something, they're gonna still use it.
Yeah, but that's
they're not supposed to, but they will.
But that's then there lies a problem. You have to put people in office that change the law, and then you have to think about the civilian aspect of it too. Is this guy, because of what he may have been through, the traumatic ways, is he safe to be around civilian people? So you have to protect the civilians too at the same time. Can you put this guy in the store? Can he work around knives after he's stabbed 4 people? And do you put this kind of guy in the restaurant around knives? Is he psychologically fit? Do they have the money?
That's a different story. Like you said, that's mental illness. If you first look at it, in your house, you got knives in the kitchen. There's knives everywhere. Ain't no way they're going to get you away from knives. Unless you don't eat.
That's not the issue I'm talking about. I'm not talking about just being around with knives. I'm just talking about, I just use that as an example. It doesn't fit everything. You have some people that you can't have them around children. That's why, certain sex offenders can't live around schools. They have to be there's a lot of factors that you have to factor in. Even if you want to make the civilians safe, are you testing these guys that's coming home for psychological damage? The law already said that if you spend more than 5 years in the penitentiary, you'll never be the same mentally. That's why they're now applying that PTSD to dudes who've done a gang of time, because it's just like being in a war. You behind enemy lines 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 40, 45 years. So there's a mental aspect of it too, of clearing people, to the point that you have to be mindful of the civilians where you want to place them at work. This dude is
Well, that's a long time, 35, 40 years. Most of the people that I know of that go to jail, they be gone for, short periods, like, probably less than 5 years or less, something like that.
5 years is a long period, brother, be behind enemy lines, man. 5 years is 2 years is a long time, bro.
I know. I work in the prison system. I work for New York State Department of Corrections of State New York. But I'm just saying that, the ones that's doing less than 5, they have programs for them. They're not as strict with them. They don't have to stay in the cell. They let them stay in cubicles and all.
But a cubicle is a cell. It's just a modified cell.
Yeah, but it's not like behind bars. And then they got the conjugate visits.
You don't have to explain. You actually don't have to explain that to me. I know all of that. I know that firsthand knowledge. But what I'm saying is, there's a psychological effect to this whole thing. Some people snap.
Yeah, of course there is.
I've seen people snap in 2 days after being behind in the cell. So I'm just saying it affects people differently. So there's no real, when you say, 5 years and under, like that's, some kind of meatball, like it's a walk in the park. It's not that. I've seen people catch hell in 6 months. I mean, pure hell. In 6 months, not even going into the prison, so just being in the detainees jail. So that's a whole different hit. And when you're doing that, you have to be mindful of people who don't understand all of that. The grandmothers, the guy that went to college his whole life, who looks upon this guy differently, and this other guy looks upon him differently. There's a lot to that. There's more than what you think, And yes, you want to do the right thing, especially in a predominantly Christian country where your religion is based on second chances. So there's a lot to think with that, bro. There's a lot to look through that. And, they got these programs, they got these outside programs, they got the KSAC program, Ready, Willing, and Able, where guys come home from the penitentiary, and they have programs in places for them. But you got to want it.
When I was working up there, I used to talk to the psychiatrist, because we used to have clinics in the clinic, and he'd be having his psychiatry clinic. I have my podiatry clinic, and we'd just be talking. So I know about a lot of the mental problems and so forth, psychological problems. And you could tell, because every time when you go to the clinic as a doctor, you hold a clinic, they give you a list of your patients. And you should see how long his list was of all these people that had to see the psychiatrist. So I know there's a lot of mental illness up in that jail.
But just being on the psych list don't mean you have psych problems. It just means that
I'm saying not all of them, but a lot of them do. Because when I'm talking about the psychiatrist, not the psychologist. They have different ones, but the psychiatrist, he's giving out the medicine. You know,
I just told you I got first-hand knowledge of that, bro. I see it. You know, I know what you're talking about. I see it, but I'm just saying that all of them, it's not based on mental illness, but there are a lot of them who have it. You know, and it looks more than what it is when you're talking about a prison that's population is 2,500, 1,700 people. You know, so when you see the medication line, it's just abnormally long, especially for the size of the particular population. And that's a true fact, but everybody that's on that guy's list doesn't have mental illness in the sense of, you know,
it might not be severe mental illness. It might be a slight, you know, mental illness. We can just give them a little mild medication to calm them down or something. But
you got more of those people in the street than you got in prisons.
Oh yeah, you got them. You got them running the streets like crazy. Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, and again, it's just about understanding a particular mindset, especially like you said, you know, when it's, you know, putting a prisoner in that position. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of, you know, what you would call flashbacks that can come out of that. You know, family suing. Should he have been in that position? Did he go through psychological tests as he came out of prison? Then they're going to review his records and da-da-da-da-da. And why would you put a guy that's a robber as a janitor in the bank? You know, there's a lot of questions that go with, you know, when that kind of thing goes haywire. And it's a lot of questions when they say that, you know, you offered him no help. You know, this guy didn't do this. He slipped through the cracks. You know, there's always, you know, a negative way to look at it. And there's always a positive way to look at it, you know, to reinforce that these dudes really do need help. You know? So, you know, it's a vicious two-way street. You know?
I'm just saying, we're in a war right now, and that's New York, New Jersey, Newark, Brooklyn, Chicago, everywhere in this country. And we probably got more people dying out here than they do in Palestine. You know?
I would say that. You know, year in and year out. You know, I can understand that. You know, but you know what they give the world to feed off of. You know, it takes away now. You won't hear as much as that in the highlights of this Palestinian-Israeli war, but it goes on daily, every day. You know, this guy, whether he's killing his family, it's a hit and run, or, you know, this, that, and the third, you know. So those are just things that, you know, we have gotten callous to because it happens, you know, so much every day in every way. You know, you just hear it and, you know, another person this, another person that, or this and that, and, you know, another stray bullet struck this one. And, you know, it's almost just like saying, you know, good morning to your neighbors. It's just a daily routine, and you've come to expect it. You know, so that's just how it is. You know, I mean, it is for me.
I mean, this world is jacked up, but that's why I have faith in God.
Okay.
Because I believe in Jesus Christ. You know.
Okay.
Some people say, you know, I don't believe in it. I believe in God.
All right.
I should have been dead many times already. But it wasn't for the grace of God. I'm still here. Yeah.
And if that's how you see it, so be it. If that's how you see it, then
I'm
be
sure a lot of people, you probably can look at your life and say many times where you probably should have been dead.
And there's probably some moments like that in there. There's probably
Yeah,
some in there, you know. I mean, but for
everybody, if
what?
you live long enough.
Well, for whatever reason, it wasn't to be. So I guess I shouldn't have been, because if I should have been, I would have been. You know, I think
And
people
that's
say
due
that.
to the grace of God.
Yeah, that's how you title it. That's how you explain it. Other people might not explain it that way. It just wasn't meant to be. But you will always be able to say it wasn't meant to be because God said it wasn't meant to be. And this person's belief system may be different from yours.
I know.
You know, so, you know, it is what it is. You know.
But if it wasn't for that, if people didn't have faith in God, imagine how chaotic this world would be. It's already chaotic. If people didn't believe in God, the world would be wild. It's wild now, but it would be much, much wild.
Where you base that on?
So they'll be taking people, be going helter skelter, killing
So
and fighting, and they will have no morals if
they
they
do
don't
that
believe in
now.
God.
But they do that now.
I said they do, but it would be worse if they didn't believe in Jesus Christ.
I'm saying, how do you say that? But how do you prove it to be worse? How can you
Well, I
prove that?
can't prove it because I don't want to prove it because I don't want it to get worse.
So why
But
would you
that's my
say it?
prediction. That's just a prediction.
Okay. So you prophesy.
Now, you said all wars start over religion. And I went, when I was in college, my philosophy professor said the same thing. He said that's if you consider atheism a religion. But you know the Russians, they fighting and they don't believe in religion, most of them.
What do you mean they don't believe in religion?
A lot of them they got religion over there, but it's not like over here where you have so much religion. Because when they was in the Soviet Union, they were basically atheists, and they would only let them go to one type of church. Everybody had to go to the same church. You know, if they went to church, most of them didn't go. So they were basically atheists. And that's what the guy, my philosophy professor, told me. He said, if you count atheism as a religion, then all wars start over religion. That's what he said.
I don't know if all wars are.
I don't believe that either. But he said,
I think, you know, the two elements of war historically have been religion and politics. Have been, you know, the two elements that are consistent in most of the wars that I've read about or briefly studied. You know, so, you know, it's you know, land is politics. You know, and when you fight for land, or you in different countries and you're doing this and doing that, or you're doing the humanity type situation, and you're looking for leverage for this or this or this and that, you know. Yeah, I just think that's what it's all about. You know, it's about, you know, positioning yourself like, you know, life on the chessboard. It's all about the same thing. So when you sit down and you come to that particular understanding, then that's all it is, you know, and you have to find a way to, for yourself anyway, you know, because I'm not a journalist. I don't do neopolitics that often, but there's a way that this could be explained. But it has to take, you know, you have to filter it through nature, not just the interpretation of the, you know, the local pundits and news anchors. Now, you know, you have to make it make sense, you know, of why this is always happening, why the wars run every this amount of years. There's a major war going on in the world somewhere, and you filter it through, and you know, you look at the economics of it. It's a lot more than what people think it is, you know, and there's a lot more reasons, you know, like, you know, right now in this Palestine and Israel thing, you know, there's a beef about the Suez Canal right now. You know, the one way in, one way out traffic of the Suez Canal. And, you know, and the opening of the new canal that's right on the border of Palestine's land. So people are making predictions and they're saying things about that. That when this is all over, they're going, you're going to see a new water tunnel, a new water vein created right on the borderline of Palestine. That's going to go in and out to relieve the one way in, one way out traffic on the Suez Canal. So you have people are making predictions about this. And some people are making bold statements of religious war. So you just have to figure it into how you view it and how you see it. So and that's that. I don't think that it takes a genius to come to an understanding of that. And when you get to that particular point, you just have to figure out, how do you reduce the war in you? And this is what I was talking about with the spiritual connection and understanding, the concept of delay that you have no powers over. Who controls those particular factors? You're ready to make a move on Monday, but something comes up, and this is delayed for whatever reason. And and the only reason you can say for whatever reason is because you don't really actually know the reason. And then you say, to another person, do it in God's time. Da 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 da. But when it comes to your problems, the same advice you give is not the same advice you take. So when you look at those situations, when you look at certain aspects of but James was talking about the aspects of war, whether this is this a religious war, is it this kind of war, is whose God is going to win in the end, and there's so many other little things that you can look at and try to finesse and understand why this is happening the way that it's happening. And the thing about it is that we have to get to a point where we have a common interpretation of it, because the powers that be that have this in motion on the human level, they already have a concept and a perception of how they want this thing to go. And they're going to try to win by any means necessary. So, that's why, one country will tell another country they want them to disarm all their nuclear weapons, while the country that's making the request for the disarmament has nuclear weapons. It's like you telling me, get rid of your guns and you're going to be the only guy on the block that got a gun. That gives you control of, all the weaponry on the block. So it gives you an edge in the times of war. So you have to understand those particular aspects of that too. When you look at why, the devil is always at work, as they would say. And he just spreading this thing across the land historically from the beginning of time, since the inception of warlike thoughts. He's been on the move. He doesn't stop. If it ain't, physical warfare, spiritual warfare, if it ain't that, it's mental warfare, in the indoctrinations of our public school, into, the jackleg preachers behind the mega churches, and it's just a lot. You got to decipher, and a lot of it you just gonna have to overlook, and concentrate on the path that you're on, and don't let nothing throw you off that path. And that's sometimes where I find my faults at in myself. Sometimes I just get caught up in shit that throws me off a particular path. Then I get back on and I rush and boom, boom, and and then the delays may come. Now I'm mad because I slowed down. Now I'm mad that life slows down, and it doesn't balance out. It's almost like being mad at yourself twice, because you are the cause of all things. Regardless of what your team may look like, it always bounces back to the I. Never changes. It always starts with the I, and sometimes that's hard to understand. And even when you have teammates who are team one with you and do everything, and they don't understand your slowdown, and it becomes to the point where you hurt them. You don't mean to, but it happens in those situations. But the interpretation of the spiritual delays, I think, is very key. I think it's more than key. It's the unlocked lock. And when you sit down with it, you'll find out, once you get a spiritual understanding, that you don't really need that physical key. The physical key is for people to enter the door when they don't belong there, because once you got this thing under a wrap, the door opens automatically for you. So the people with the key can come in and have a degree of understanding, but they won't understand it as a whole as you understand it, because you've passed that point of the test. It's not, end all be all. It's just one of the many levels that you're gonna have to pass in order to understand. So and that's what's happening. And that was the basis of what this whole conversation was about. We wandered off and we got into different aspects of it, but it all bases down to a root of understanding. Why is the war going on? It's a level of understanding, and it's a lot more complicated than we think the simplified answer is. That Hamas said this and this and that and this and that. There are reactions to action. So why did Hamas do what he did? Why did Israel do what they do? And it's just too much for me to contemplate right now. I just know that there's something going on, and I don't know who's right and who's wrong, and that's just the real aspect. I might pick a winner because I might be biased over one team over another, but as far as, like I said, with the concerns of my nation, both of those nations have treated us with utmost disrespect. The Palestinians go all the way back to the slave trade. The Jews still in the slave trade right now. You know what I mean? So, somebody's going to figure it out, but, it might not be Star who have the answer. Some things you just got to weigh out and let nature take its particular course. I just wanted to have a way of understanding certain things, and I brought it to the table just to see what it's going to be. And that's what you have to understand, because everything is centered off of two things: chaos and divine order. So when you say love times love, and you get to that super divineness, that's where it's just at,
Can I ask you a question? Real quick, last question.
Yeah.
How are the Jews still in the slave trade?
Wow. The Jews
What
still
country is that?
No, it's you right here in this country. Who runs the court system?
You talking about the employer and employee?
I'm talking about who runs the criminal justice system.
Oh, you talking about the jails?
The criminal justice system. Jails are a part of the system.
Yeah, I know. You're talking about the judges.
I'm talking, the judges are a part of a system. Who runs the system?
I thought it was the states. Now you're saying it was Jews? I'm just curious.
Okay, let me try to explain it to you before I end this round table. I said, I make mention of this 100 times. The ratification of the 13th Amendment, 1865. Slavery was abolished. This is what we celebrate when we do Juneteenth. However, at their particular think tank, matter of fact, I think the little young rapper Mason says this best, that they knew that they couldn't end slavery because of residuals. So he says that they changed your name from slaves to criminals. In order for the criminal conviction to stand, according to the 13th Amendment, where it says that slavery shall be abolished except for one being duly convicted of a crime. So, as soon as you're convicted of a crime in this particular country, by their amendments, you're a slave again. Even when they brought it in, they made the crimes of laundering, an offense, so they would lock you up if you were standing on the corner, and you were sentenced to do slave work. And what you do now in the prison system that is ran by the Jews, the criminal justice system, as well as the media, Hollywood, and all the things that they have their hands into, is a form of slavery. So after
But they have
judges, the
white
jury,
slaves too, then, because white people are criminals in jail too, right?
yeah, anybody, I just said anybody duly convicted of a crime. I didn't say black men that are duly convicted, anybody who's duly convicted of a crime, male, female, white, black, Hispanic, whatever you are. Once you're convicted of a crime, you're a labor slave, and you get your wages like they did when they built this country on free labor. Now it's cheap labor because they have to give you some money now, or it would just look so bad on the powers that be. So they give them a minimal pay. They might make $3 a week, depending on your program. You know, there's some programs where you can make, $100, $200 a month, and that's just like having a seven-figure job in the streets, because the average guy's making, like I said, $3 every 2 weeks, and that's when he goes to the store with if he doesn't have family support. But it's just the base pay line that you're getting. So they went from free labor to cheap labor. The license plate industry, the sheets that the hospitals use, the furniture that's in these high-rise offices. A lot of this is made right in the penitentiary. They're making their own cells now. They become self-sufficient with the making of cells. So this is what I'm saying to you when I say that, they have modern-day slavery. The Portuguese from back in the days and the Jews that are doing it today, and anybody else who is part of that particular system. And that's what I mean by, they're in the slave trade business today. Because everything is the same. It's just, some of the modes of transportation, instead of a boat, they put you on buses and you're shackled in the same manner. Shackles on your feet, chains around your wrists, handcuffs, putting on, a form of transportation, which is a bus. And the plantations are now prisons. And instead of picking cotton, you make license plates. You make this, you make that. You take care of master's house. The pipes break, they bring in the inmate plumber. You got inmate cooks. You got inmate servers. You got inmate porters. So it's the same thing. You're just not recognizing what you're seeing till a person brings it to you to see. You know what I'm saying? And you get too wild in one of their plantations, they'll pack up your little belongings and send you to another plantation. Might be a little more stricter. They might be a little more in what you call a stickler for the rules. You do good, they send you to a less security. Where you go into a dorm setting, and you think that you're not in prison as bad as you were in prison because you're not in the cell, now you're in a cubicle. And you can go out to the yard and there's no wall, but there's a fence with a barbed wire on it. And it's all the same thing. It's just a matter of perception and how you see it, So that's how, they're part of the slave trade today, So and that's how I view it, and having lived it, I really know what it is, So and that's what I mean by that. Because the slave trade has never stopped. Slavery was never actually abolished. It was never abolished.
But the difference is they have white slaves too now. Back then,
they had white slaves back then too. What are you talking about? They had white slaves back then too.
Well, I heard something like that, but see, they never gave us we never learned that type of history in schools. We didn't learn too much about that.
It depends. It depends on who history you read. Of course, they had white slaves.
You had to learn that on your own.
They had white slaves in this country before we got here. Who do you think the slaves were? Who do you think picked them cotton before we got here?
No, well, not, because the Moors was here first. They were black people before Columbus and all, so there was black people here first.
There's black people all over the planet first. The Caucasian race is the last of the human race to evolve. Even the anthropologists, all of them say that. Darwin, all of them say that. They're no older than, I don't think they're 8,500 years old, 8.5 thousand years old. Caucasian skin. They're the last of the bunch. They're in the human race, but they were the last ones out, according to history, in any way that you look at, even if he was grafted from black man's genes and all that, he still, he derived from that original source, that original human source on earth. So, but yeah, they were white slaves back then. There's white slaves now. They're always going to be white slaves. As long as you're below the threshold of poverty, you're basically a slave, whether you're in the penitentiary or in the street. You're going to be a slave to the system one way or another. If you're not aware of how the matrix, the system, in and of itself works. Because they label certain things, so they give you a label and you're fighting to take that label off, and this one is fighting to put a label on, and you lose concept of, human life in and of itself. And then you hit with the materialistic things. That's another thing that blinds you while you trying to get that to keep up with the people. Here it is, you buy a $25,000 bag or $2,000 bag and have $10 in it, and the people that make the bag got a $10 bag with $25,000 in the bag, and a $10 bag, and you got $10 in a $2,500 bag, because you're caught up in the system. They pay people plenty of money to make sure that you buy all these little things from Jordans and Chanel's and Birkin bags and wigs and eyelashes. They have people that can make millions and millions of dollars just to sell Pepsi. 16 teaspoons of sugar in every can, and then tell you to stay away from sugar. So they got another guy that's out there. It's a crazy system. Your system is crazy, and you just got to understand it when you see it. Because we could talk about that all day. But today's topic was just, something that was, I wanted to see how people understood it the way I understood it, or the way I see it, or give me a different way to look at it, So, and that's what I wanted to do today, to share that with some people and get some ideas and, and helping me understand and digest the way that the game goes. You know what I mean? So with that, I'm going to close out, and say goodnight to everybody. I've name, would you do me a favor and do the show line or something? Because I don't even have that paper no more. I'm going to have to get that back from you too. And I'm going to say goodnight. And I got some other things I got to do. And plus the game is on.
Star.
Yes.
Peace and blessings, bro. I listened to the whole show. You and Dr. James and Star show, Nate. But wonderful show, brother, and I appreciate what you laid out there. And if you can remember, you might want to put on your count. I got this brother that's real deep into heart disease, and you might want to ask him a question. He's also into cellular rejuvenation, Dr. Ezra West. So if you could put me on your calendar for 6 p.m., brother, this Saturday. And also, Mr. Williams is going to have Leonard Jeffries. We're going to be celebrating his 87th birthday, along with Professor Smalls and Hakeem Jeffries, his nephew. So I'll send you a text.
Please, for both events.
Right.
For both events, all right? Definitely. And what days are those? Do you know the days?
I think Professor Small's birthday is, not Professor Small's.
Leonard Jeffries.
Yeah, his birthday is coming up in January.
Okay, so I just need to know the days so I can know what days I'll be working.
Right. I'll get it to you.
All right, get that
book, okay?
All right.
And also the brother, I know you probably heard about Uhuru 3.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the brother Mali. He was on the reparations panel with Leonard Jeffries. I got him coming in. I'm waiting for his secretary to get back to me with a date. So we got some, and also I got a revolutionary holistic doctor. He worked on Mutulu Shakur before he passed away when he got out of jail. Dr. Kakai. Yeah, Dr. Kakai will be on the 16th on my show. I'll send the calendar to you.
I have a video.
Mm-hmm.
I was at Herman Bell's 71st birthday party.
Right.
And Moodaloo had called, I think he called Lumumba. He called Lumumba on the phone, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The Dada was there, a lot of the old Panthers was there. And I still have that video where we spoke to him on the phone, on FaceTime.
You ought to play it
mm,
if you can.
I got to test it for its quality. Then if it's not, you know, if you put it up and you have a good editor, somebody that knows how to, you know, to clean that stuff up, you know, all that that tech stuff, I'll definitely send it to y'all. You know, if it's long enough, because you know that's based on time how you can send those things. But we'll figure a way. We'll figure a way. All right.
Yeah, and just to let you know too, brother, this Thursday I'm coming over there on Halsey in the heart of Bed-Stuy. There's an African holistic center over there. I'm coming over there, me and my lady friend. We're coming over for acupuncture. I forgot the sister's name, but we made an appointment, and we're coming over this Thursday at 2:00. So,
I'm in Brooklyn on Thursday, and I'm in that area. You know, matter of fact, I'm on a block away from Halsey. It depends on what cross streets y'all are at. You got to find out your cross streets.
Okay.
You know, once you find out your cross streets, you know, you get the address, put in Google, tell you what streets you're between. Because that's the side of town I be on almost every Thursday anyway.
All right. Well, I'll give you a holler.
Right.
After acupuncture, give you a holler, brother. Come over and shake your hand.
All right. Sound like a plan.
All right, brother.
All right.
Have a good evening, brother.
Okay, you too. All right. Evadne, sign out for me, please. Thank you.